They called me a boy plunderer. They called me the Great Bear of Wall Street. They said I was reckless, that I was lucky, that the markets had simply smiled upon me the way fortune smiles upon fools and madmen. But I knew something they didn't. I had always known it long before the millions came, long before the losses came, long before I had sat in the bucket shops of Boston as a teenager, reading the tape like a man reads the face of someone he loves. I knew that the market was not a place of luck. It was a place of truth. And truth, my friend, has a DNA. It replicates itself. It appears in every generation, in every era, in every man or woman who dares to sit across from the greatest opponent they will ever face, the market itself. I want to speak to you today not as a ghost from a forgotten era, but as a voice that has watched, from wherever the dead watch from, every great trader who came after me. I have seen them. Tudor Jones, pacing his trading floor with that same restless energy I once carried through the corridors of my Palm Beach estate. Stanley Druckenmiller, sitting quietly before a position the way I once sat before a big trade, not with excitement, but with the cold, surgical patience of a surgeon who knows exactly when to make the cut. Ed Sykota, Jesse Stein, Michael Marcus, men who never met me, yet carry something of me in every decision they make. That is not coincidence. That is DNA. And if you have been watching this channel, you already know something about this DNA. You have seen our previous videos where we explored how I built and lost fortunes, how I read the market's language, how I developed the rules that governed my trading life. If you haven't watched those yet, I want you to go back and watch them. They are linked for you right here on this channel. And everything I say today will make far greater sense once you have walked through those earlier doors with me. Every lesson connects. Every video is a chapter in the same book. Now, before I go further, I want to tell you about something we have created for you, something I wish had existed in my own time. It is called Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk. It is an ebook, and it is available right now in the description of this video. I want you to pause, go down, and save that link. Not because someone is selling you something, but because what is inside that book is the compressed wisdom of a lifetime spent in the trenches of the market. It is not theory. It is blood. It is hard-won truth. Get it. Read it. And then come back and finish watching, because what I am about to tell you will hit differently once you understand the foundation. Now, the DNA. Let us talk about what it actually is. The first strand of this DNA is something I called, though never in those exact words, the willingness to be wrong loudly and right quietly. Every great trader I have ever observed, across generations, shares this trait. Most people in this world are desperate to appear intelligent. They hold losing positions because admitting the loss means admitting the error, and the ego cannot survive that admission. I was not immune to this. God knows I was not immune. I have held positions that were destroying me because I had spoken about them publicly, because my pride had become entangled with my analysis. And every single time I allowed pride to override the tape, the market punished me without mercy. Tudor Jones famously said that he had learned more from his losses than from any winning trade he ever made. Do you think that is a cliché? It is not. It is the most specific and precise truth in all of trading. Because losing, truly losing, not just being temporarily down, but being categorically wrong, forces you to go back to the beginning. It forces you to question your method, your timing, your psychology, your entry point. And if you are honest enough to ask those questions without flinching, you come out of the loss with something that no winning trade can give you. You come out with clarity. The second strand of this DNA is what I will call the ability to wait without weakening. This is perhaps the rarest quality among traders, and it is the one that separates the men who accumulate generational wealth from the men who simply accumulate stories. I made my largest fortunes not by trading constantly, but by waiting sometimes for months for the exact configuration that told me the market was ready to move. The 1929 short. The 1907 panic. These were not the result of frantic activity. They were the result of a man sitting on his hands while every instinct in his body screamed at him to act, and choosing deliberately, painfully, consciously, to wait one more day. Stanley Druckenmiller has spoken about this in his own language. He talks about the importance of not forcing trades, of letting the market come to you rather than chasing it. George Soros, with whom Druckenmiller famously managed the Quantum Fund, operated on a similar principle: accumulate slowly, then, when the moment arrives, bet with maximum conviction. These are not different philosophies. They are the same philosophy wearing different suits. And what ties it all together, what makes the waiting possible, is something that no trading course will teach you, because it cannot be taught in the traditional sense. It can only be absorbed. It is the deep, cellular understanding that the market will always give you another opportunity. Always. The trade you missed today is not the last train leaving the station. There is always another train. And the trader who has internalized this, truly internalized it, not just repeated it as a mantra, is the trader who can sit in stillness while the impatient crowd destroys itself around him. Patience, though, is only one side of the coin. The other side, the side that most people are far more comfortable discussing, is conviction. And here is where I must speak carefully, because conviction is the most misunderstood quality in all of speculation. People confuse conviction with stubbornness. They confuse it with ego. They confuse it with the refusal to take a loss. That is not conviction. That is delusion dressed in conviction's clothing. Real conviction is something entirely different, and the great traders across every generation have understood this distinction with crystalline precision. Conviction, as I lived it and as every market legend after me has demonstrated, is the product of preparation. It is not a feeling you have in the moment. It is a conclusion you have reached through weeks or months of observation, study, and pattern recognition. When I shorted the market in 1929, I did not wake up one morning feeling brave. I had been watching the internal deterioration of the market for months. I had seen the leadership stocks begin to fail. I had noticed that the rallies were becoming shorter and less convincing, that the distribution was happening quietly beneath the surface noise of public euphoria. By the time I made the move, the conviction was not emotional. It was architectural. It had been built brick by brick, and it could withstand the pressure of being early, of being temporarily wrong, of watching the market make one final push higher before it collapsed. This is precisely what separates a speculator like me from a gambler. A gambler's conviction is born in the moment from a feeling, a hunch, a hot streak that seems like destiny. A speculator's conviction is born in the preparation room, in the quiet hours before the market opens, in the journals and the charts and the careful cataloging of what the market is actually doing versus what the crowd believes it is doing. If you have watched our earlier videos on this channel, and I urge you again to go back and watch them if you haven't, because we have broken down my specific methods in detail that I cannot fully repeat here, you already know that I kept meticulous records of market behavior. That record-keeping was not bureaucratic habit. It was the construction of conviction. Now, the third strand of this DNA, and this one will surprise you, is the capacity for catastrophic self-awareness. I do not mean simply knowing your weaknesses in an abstract sense. I mean the ability to look at yourself in the mirror after a devastating loss and say, with total honesty and without flinching, I did this, not the market, not the tip I received. Not the manipulation by the big operators. Me. I made the decision. I violated the rule. I held when I should have sold. I traded when I was emotional. I listened to someone else's opinion and abandoned my own judgment. Every single great trader in the modern era who has survived long enough to be called a legend has this quality. Michael Marcus, one of the founding fathers of the Commodities Corporation trading dynasty, has spoken openly about the devastating early losses he suffered, losses that nearly ended his career before it began. What saved him was not a new system or a better broker. What saved him was the moment he stopped blaming external forces and started examining his own psychology with the same rigor he applied to price charts. Paul Tudor Jones keeps a video of his worst trading mistakes and watches it regularly, not to torture himself, but to maintain the self-awareness that keeps the DNA active. Because here is the brutal, uncomfortable truth that most people who enter the market never want to accept. The market is a perfect mirror. It reflects back to you, with devastating accuracy, the quality of your thinking, the stability of your emotions, and the integrity of your discipline. You cannot fool it. You cannot charm it. You cannot network your way into its good graces. The market does not care about your intelligence, your education, your connections, or your confidence. It only responds to the quality of your decisions, made in real time, under pressure, with money on the line. And because of this, the traders who endure are the traders who have done the deepest, most uncomfortable work on themselves. I failed at this, at various points in my life. I must be honest with you about that. I had the market knowledge. I had the methodology. I had the track record that should have given me the confidence to trust myself completely. But there were periods, dark, destructive periods, where I abandoned my own rules, where I listened to men whose interests were not aligned with mine, where I allowed the social world and its seductions to pull me away from the cold, clean discipline of the trading room, and the market charged me for every single departure. It charged me in the only currency that matters, capital. This is why the eBOOK we have created, Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk, focuses not just on strategy, but on the psychology beneath the strategy. The link is in the description. I want you to get it, read it slowly, and treat it not as a trading manual, but as a psychological blueprint, because the mechanics of trading are learnable in weeks. The psychology of trading takes a lifetime unless you have a shortcut, and that shortcut is learning from those who have already paid the price of the lessons. And the great traders who came after me paid those prices, every one of them. George Soros lost hundreds of millions in the Russian financial crisis of 1998. Druckenmiller has spoken about blowing up his own analysis during the dot-com bubble, buying into the euphoria just before the collapse, despite intellectually knowing that the valuations made no sense. Even the legends make the human errors. The difference is what they do immediately after. What they do after the loss. This is where the DNA either survives or it dies. And I want to spend the final part of our conversation here, in this territory, because this is where most traders lose not just their money but their will. This is the graveyard of potential greatness. The losses themselves rarely destroy traders. It is the response to the loss that determines everything that follows. When I lost everything, and I lost everything more than once, there was a period of stillness. Not the pleasant stillness of patience, but the terrible stillness of a man who has been broken. I know what it feels like to sit in a room and understand, with perfect clarity, that the fortune you built is gone, not diminished, gone. And in that stillness there is a question that every trader must eventually answer, and the answer determines whether they were ever truly built for this life or whether they were merely passing through it. The question is simple. Do you still believe in the process, even when the process has produced ruin? If the answer is yes, if you can separate the outcome of the trade from the validity of the method, if you can look at the loss and say, I violated my rules and that is why I lost, or I followed my rules and the market was simply beyond prediction in that moment, and either way I understand what happened and I trust the framework, then you have the DNA. You are made of the right material. You will come back. You will always come back. If the answer is no, if the loss makes you question everything, if it drives you to abandon your method and seek a new system, a new guru, a new approach, then I say this to you with genuine compassion rather than harshness. You have not yet done the work. You are still trading from the outside of yourself rather than from the inside. And no system in the world, no matter how sophisticated, will save you until you go inside and build the foundation that no market can shake. This is the thread that runs through Livermore and Jones and Druckenmiller and Soros and Seikota and every man and woman who has ever achieved lasting success in the markets. They were all shaken. They were all broken, in their own ways, at their own times. And they all came back, not because the market changed, but because they changed. They went deeper. They got more honest. They stripped away another layer of ego and found, beneath it, something solid and real that could serve as the ground floor of a rebuilt architecture. And I want to speak directly to you now, whoever you are watching this. You may be at the beginning of your trading journey, still believing that the right indicator or the right pattern will unlock the door. Or you may be in the middle of it, battle-worn, wondering if the losses you have taken mean something is fundamentally wrong with you. Or you may be further along, consistent enough to be dangerous to yourself in a different way, comfortable enough that you have stopped doing the deep psychological work that got you here. Wherever you are, I want you to understand this. The DNA I have been describing is not something you are born with. It is something you grow. It grows through loss and recovery. It grows through the discipline of following rules even when every emotion in your body is screaming at you to break them. It grows through the humility of going back to the previous lessons. Go back on this channel. Watch the earlier videos we have made about patience, about reading the market, about cutting losses because the knowledge compounds just as capital compounds, and every layer of understanding you add makes the next layer more powerful. We have built this channel as a living library of these principles. Every video connects to the others. Every lesson reinforces the ones before it. Drop a comment below right now and tell me, which part of a trader's psychology do you struggle with most? Is it patience? Is it cutting losses? Is it the paralysis of self-doubt? Tell me in the comments, because your answer will shape the next videos we create for you. This channel exists for you. The conversations in the comments are where real learning happens, where you realize you are not alone in your struggles, that every trader who ever sat in front of a screen has wrestled with the same demons. And before this video ends, I want to bring you back to the ebook one final time. Thinking like Jesse Livermore, mastering the market with discipline, patience, and risk. It is in the description. It is the most direct distillation we have created of everything I have lived, learned, and lost for. It is not a shortcut around the work, nothing is that, but it is a map. And a map, in the right hands, can save years of wandering. The market will be there tomorrow. It will be there next week, next year, a decade from now. The question is whether you will be there with it, not just surviving, but growing, evolving, becoming the kind of trader whose presence in the market is a force rather than a footnote. That transformation does not happen in a single trade. It does not happen in a single video. It happens in the accumulation of right decisions, made consistently, over time, by a person who has done the interior work and built something that no single loss can destroy. That is the DNA. That is what Livermore carried. That is what the great traders of every era carry. And it is what you are building right now, in this moment, by choosing to seek understanding rather than shortcuts, wisdom rather than noise. You are already doing the right thing. Now go deeper. Stay consistent, watch the next video, and trade like you were born to endure.